There we go.
Welcome everyone to Working Group API Expression. We are Tuesday, July 21st, 2020, and we're going to talk about what we're doing. Do we have any topic in the agenda? I can only see two, and I can't see that person. I wouldn't try to pronounce that name.
Yeah, I think it's something we have to look into. We both did the bias training. I think that should make it done for us, and we have to look into this annual report thingy.
So I think we've done that, so that's good. And I don't know what this is. Do you know what this is?
I think we have to report our status at the community meeting at some point. I didn't click the link so far, but that's what I at least heard. They went to annual reports. All right. Yeah, I think that's something we do have to work out. I'll look into it.
My internal filter considered this was spam. I remember seeing that and thinking I'm not interested in that, but it looks like I was wrong. Are we supposed to do something?
Yeah.
Should we talk about that now?
I don't think so. I'll read over it and we'll just discuss. I'll talk to you. Probably easiest.
Okay.
It's one of those org thing stuff for the work group. Yep.
Okay, cool. Is there anything else that we want to talk about that we didn't have in the agenda?
Anyone?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's anything you want to talk about at any time, please interrupt me. I want to start by mentioning that this task is now over. So thank you so much to Julian, because we have a much smoother transition between client-side and server-side apply. So I think that's great progress. It's going to be amazing for the next release.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I also want to acknowledge that we have done that. Thank you, Joe, because again, this is going to be improving the experience significantly. And Joe has also done the documentation for that. So this is definitely complete and great.
Oh, do we have a PR open for that? Didn't see that. That's cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
if you want, I can also send the one for the documentation changes.
Yeah, that might be useful so people have a good idea how things are going to work now.
Yeah, it took us a while to phrase it, so it might be worth a read.
Yeah.
Thanks. So hopefully we can share that learning.
There are a few things that I thought about this week, discussions we've had with Julian, which are not in this document yet. I'm probably going to put them under MISC. But, okay, so we are not supposed to track the fields on objects that don't have any managed fields and are not being created. So in other words, if you if you update an object and it doesn't have the fields, then we're supposed to keep it that way, not starting to track them. And that's important for people who are converting from an older version of the cluster to a newer version. We don't want to suddenly start tracking fields on existing big objects and deal with the consequences of that. But I do not know if this works today, and I'm not convinced that we have a test.
Yeah, I think Initially, it does seem to work. Yeah, I can link in that PR.
Did we have this probability stuff, or was it only for create that we could just turn it down?
Yeah, right. Yes, absolutely. But it's hard, obviously, to create a test that is going to say what happens after an update of the cluster, because we don't have a good way to update the clusters, especially in the integration test. So we don't have a test that shows that this works. And orthogonally to that, we have no mechanism to stop tracking fields on specific objects. Because if you send a null managed field, we're going to use the one from the live object. If you send an empty one, we're going to reset it. Reset, but not stop tracking. So Julian and I were discussing the idea of having a third mechanism to say, I want to stop tracking the field, which would allow us to make tests, because now we would be able to say, hey, I want to stop tracking. And now we have we don't have managed fields anymore, and we can see how grabbing back the fields is going to work, or starting to manage the fields again is going to work. And this is because we have a bug somewhere with someone complaining about the before first apply manager. And again, it's hard to test because we don't have a mechanism to stop tracking and then stop tracking again.
Wouldn't tracking of managed fields be stopped if we turn off the field manager feature? Or the social apply feature?
That's a good point, but I think you have to restart the API. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, literally we could do that. Yeah, that's a good point. We could stop tracking and then restart the API, start the API server without the tracking, and then restart the API server with the tracking. That's one way to do it. But so yeah, the question is, do we want a way to allow people to stop tracking? We could do what you said. That sounds reasonable too.
Because the field manager wouldn't be added at all if the feature is disabled. So I don't know what would track the managed fields then.
If server-side apply is disabled, the field manager is completely cleared.
Yeah.
On every single request.
Yeah.
So that would do.
At least as long as I don't know how long feature talkers like that stay along with us, but yeah, that could be an option.
Yeah, we have a couple of options. We could either do this or do the other way. And then if we have that, we can test what happens when we start tracking the fields. And by that, I mean the first time you try to apply an object. The problem is we have to do that in an integration test, and we have to restart the API server, which is kind of slow and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. But in general, the stop tracking should be something between restarts and not on the fly.
You think so?
I think if we have, does it have to happen for every API server? Or can you just, like, would it break something if you turn them off one by one?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. And I suspect we could write the test in a different way so that we can test no matter what, while still having the thing this way. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. We could do it this way. Does it make sense, Julian?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I can give that a try.
Okay. And basically, where am I going with that? So today, when you start applying the first time, you're going to get conflict with whatever was applied or whatever was set before you. But because we have this client-side to server-side migration flow now, we can actually avoid the conflicts the first time you apply an object, which I think is great. We're pretty much using the last applied annotation for CubeBuilder to decide whether or not you should have conflicts. Okay. Cool. Let's start from scratch. We have Jenny here. No, we don't have Jenny. Hey, Julian, do you know how much time you'll have to work with us?
Yeah, I could. Do you need help taking a look at this, or?
Yeah, I'm thinking if you could help with that, that might be great.
Okay, yeah, I could take a look.
And I talked to Jenny and see if she has anything that she can share with you, or hand off or whatever, or if she wants to work with you on that. I'll talk to her.
Okay.
Status wiping. What's up with that, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm continuing to add more strategies and strategy implementations. I had a weird one today with daemon sets where I have a strategy and it didn't get. It still got a conflict with status, so I'm looking into that. Weird. I don't know what's going on, but in general, the list of remaining strategies that make the test fail are is very small. I'm still not sure if I should add strategies for all internal types or only if we have a failing test. Feel free to point me in the direction there. But in general, I'm adding strategies, and it's.
May I suggest that we do checkpoints on this as often as possible, like especially when you have a doubt. Like whenever you have a doubt, just create the PR. Make sure that we all agree on how to solve this specific problem before you have to generalize or like apply the same pattern in like 15 different places, just so that you don't waste any of your time. I feel deeply sorry that you've had to spend so much time iterating on this 100 times.
Yeah,
and I just want to avoid that as much as possible from now on.
Yeah, I'm adding to-dos in the code where I have something where I'm not sure about, and I add comments in the PR for them. One specifically is the pod template out of the disable field for pods from the pod util. It's also covered pod template, and I'm not really sure if it works that way using the field set with prefix stuff to. I'll push it after the meeting, and I can pin you. But yeah, there's a few parts that I'm still not sure if we want to do them this way. So I'll keep in touch.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Remove manage fields. I'm not gonna lie, this is backlog now because we've done what we believed was the most important. Okay, and extending schema. I don't know if you've. I mean, I know you've not focused on that yet, Joe. Do you plan on blocking?
I'm still interested in it. Let's keep it on the list. I was also going to ask. Daniel had mentioned that it might be good for me to spend some time looking at how clients Go could better support apply. I haven't looked at that space at all, so I just had a general question for the group, which is, has anybody already been working in that space? Is there any thoughts or anything written down I should be reading about the kind of the client Go support for apply?
There was a PR, but
it's in the backlog, so that's the one you're interested in.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move that up if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to start banging on it and seeing if I can come up with anything. I know it's a little bit of a hard nut to crack, but.
So the biggest problem with the Go client especially is that it's going to keep some fields and it's going to send the 0 value sometimes.
Right.
It's not omit empty. and it's going to pretend that this is part of the intent, which we don't want.
Yeah, we got to fix
That's
that.
the main problem.
Okay, yeah, so that's one of our key requirements is you actually have to be able to scope. You actually have to be able to define a manifest, which is these are the fields I care about somehow. And we have to do that using as much of the existing client Go infrastructure as we can.
Yeah, I think while discussing it, I think a link that was this one that Daniel or Antonio suggested. Do you have a kind of a builder interface for the types, because we can't use the Go types to encode to JSON or YAML. We have like add spec or something like that that operates on maps, but I don't remember exactly. It should be in there somewhere, I hope.
Yeah, I worked on a previous system, and granted it was in a different language, it was in Java, but the way that you could do all of this is that in Java it was always getters and setters anyway, so it kind of looked a little more normal in that language. But basically you had to guard everything behind an interface. I don't know if that's what we're going to do here, but a builder pattern might be kind of more like that, where you like say what you care about and then it gets like forklifted over into something that knows exactly what you want.
Yeah, I think the analogy is with the meta accessor. You know how the meta accessor can work on like a typed object, or it can work on a unstructured object. And
Right.
so I think that you use the same pattern as a meta accessor, so you have methods that you can call. So you have autocomplete to know what the types are and what exists, but it's actually feeding a map. So the things that you don't touch are never going to be set in the map.
Right. That makes more sense. Yeah, which kind of maps with like how we really do apply, right? Everything is carried around in unstructured representation, but we know that there is types. So you want to like in a type safe language, you want to provide them with a type safe client.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll start looking at that. The only other thing I had is there's a leftover from the unsetting fields work where right now we don't have full feature parity and applies like with structured like the other merge or the patch operations, in that you can't express I expect a optional field to be absent, or I expect a map entry to be absent. And so one proposal, no way to declare this. Yes, this should not be there, or this should not exist. One way to kind of band-aid over that might be to add some kind of tombstoning, where like there is a special way to represent in a configuration or a manifest in YAML that you're saying that a map item or a optional field is you have an opinion about it, but your opinion is that it should be absent. So I was going to put out, I have a rough sketch of a design for that, so I'll probably be sending that around. So that's one of the items I've got.
Awesome, Joe.
Very cool.
Are you planning on working on these? Because I might move.
Let's move that one down for now, unless anybody thinks it's more important than the other items I just mentioned. I do have some notes about it if anybody starts it, but
yeah, I think Go client would be more valuable right now.
Okay, cool. I agree with that.
Cool. What's next? Okay, so I think we've done all of that. We should definitely figure out a new title for we need to figure it out. Okay, let's okay, Mike, do you want to talk about the API conventions? Is Mike here, by the way? Yeah.
Yeah, he's here. But muted.
Yeah, I finally moved all the tasks from the project here. Especially in the topology, we have a ton of things to document that are terrible, and I've had a email exchange with somebody at Google this week about how the documentation is not good enough and confusing. So I know I'm gonna have to work on this week.
Yeah, I mean, we're in co-freeze now. We've already release. I missed my time. But if that's more important before we release, I can help with that and continue with the status wiping afterwards.
I mean, it's documentation. Can we merge any documentation PR anymore?
119, the deadline was last Thursday.
Okay.
But, we could still go in post 119.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, Mike, if you wanna talk at any time, let us know. I'm gonna move on. Okay.
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't have any news, so yeah, just go on.
Okay, thank you, man. Okay, so Noodle. I was looking at the PR when the meeting started, so, and I know we've been through a couple of iterations, and I think we are very close to being able to merge. So I'm hoping this is gonna be merged this week. I mean, it's good for it, so not this week, but
yeah, sounds good.
Presents.
Great.
I don't think you can.
Yeah, I think Jenny's was. I need to make sure that we got all the that we're unblocking her in every way possible. But I know she had a PR out for that. I think she was working to get that refreshed.
This one specifically?
Yeah, I think that's the one. I think so. Well, oh no, that's something else. Sorry.
Okay. It's about these.
Hers is about the defaulting. Yeah.
Okay. We have a PR here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll talk to Jenny about it.
Cool.
We have. Okay. So thank you, Noodle. I can't remember her name. I'm so sorry. But thank you for this PR. It's gonna be merged soon. I think I see a few people on the call that haven't talked yet. I'm not gonna put them on the spot if they don't want to, but if you want to start contributing, I'm happy to help you find tasks in this sheet.
Hey, this is Jacob. My first time on the call. I do have a question about a use case that I have, and I'm not sure if it's in the roadmap right now, which is when you do a force apply, is it possible to also provide the fields that the values of the fields that you're forcing so that we can avoid, like, so if we have a scenario where we're continuously deploying and then without force and a conflict is detected, then we can asynchronously follow up for human judgment on whether we should force, and we can provide the human a list of the things that will be forcibly updated. But in the meantime, if some other controller changes a field, we'd like to expire that manual judgment in the before we apply it. So if we go and forcibly apply after an approval, it should still error out if something has changed. That makes sense?
So you're thinking about the case where, like, you got a conflict, you want to resolve that conflict, but only that conflict and not any new conflicts that come in the meantime.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wondered about this too. I wondered if optimistic concurrency control might be enough. Antoine, have you thought about it at all?
We did talk about it a little bit. This is under this item. It's not in. It's in the backlog right now. But if so, first of all, welcome, Jacob. Yeah, so we've thought about this. So can you please look at this issue and tell us if this would, if this is exactly what you have in mind? And
yes, I will take a look. 91074. Yeah, I didn't find it when I was searching in GitHub. So
cool. Let me grab that.
Thank you.
Too.
Yeah, plus when these explain if this is matching exactly what you want or how you would like the solution maybe to look like, if you have an opinion. It's interesting that you're mentioning this because we didn't know how important this was going to be, but I realized that it's probably going to be. So I'm gonna try and move it up.
Yeah, even when I was just like theoretically kind of going through all the stuff that you could do with apply as I was learning that, I felt like it was a gap. I was like, oh, we have currency control primitives here that are really nice. Oh, but there's this gap. There's this thing I can't possibly do.
Yes, I'm also looking at, I'm a Helm maintainer. I'm looking at refactoring the ownership model in Helm, which is pretty, it's based on releases, and it's just you own an entire object, basically. I think we can make it a little bit more nuanced and allow cross-release ownership of the same resource potentially with server-side apply support if we had this feature.
Awesome.
I think what you're asking for sounds a bit more simpler than what previous person who asked for, who raised the issue as well asked, because what you asked for sounds like you want to specify a set of fields that only those get forced. That correctly, like generating a force map from a conflict.
I'd like to be able to say kind of transactionally what the fields, the previous values were that I expect to be overriding. I guess.
Okay.
So you don't only care about the fields, you also care about the values.
Yes. So if I'm overriding a field with value foo to value bar, if the field in the meantime has been updated to Baz, then I want to prompt for manual judgment again, or error out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a pretty basic thing where, like, you get a conflict, and right now the only way to resolve it is through a force. But when you do a force, you're not getting to say, I only wanted to change the field I got a conflict on right now. You just clobber everything.
Yeah, it's a terrible response.
Yes, if we could at least explicitly say which fields we want to force, that would be a step in the right direction as well.
Yeah, I think we're looking for the right semantics of how do you specify that. And I'm curious how we could do that. It sounds like the resource version is not going to be good enough because it's changing too quick. And especially in like a CI/CD workflow where you're like, you're going to test and see if you have conflicts, and then maybe you want some human to say, yeah, I want to approve. The resource will have most likely changed in between, so the resource version wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Then we could possibly say, I care about these fields and these values, and pass these as parameters maybe somewhere, but that sounds verbose. What I have in mind right now is that we could literally hash something maybe, like hash the set of conflicts, and return this hash as we display the list of conflicts, and possibly have an option when you apply and say, I want to force this hash. If the hash has changed because the conflicts have changed, then you get an error. Otherwise, you just go to, I don't know.
That sounds pretty reasonable. I can chime in on the ticket that was linked.
Yeah, an extension of that, I would have said hash every single conflict, like the conflict and its value, and then that sounds more like what Jack was asking for. Like you can say I want to force this conflict, not this other conflict. But yeah, I think the ticket is a good way to outline all use cases.
Yeah, let's talk about this on the ticket, and we can talk about it during the next meeting.
Yeah.
See if we manage to converge somewhere.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
What else do we have? Yeah, this one is sort of important, I think, but it's also not easy to fix. So this is typically a routing thing in the OpenAPI server where like the way we set up the API service is completely different from the way we set up anything else, any other resource. And so it doesn't have the field manager properly set up when this is installed. And so we can track the manage field, and we can do server-side apply for the API service. you need to know the internal of the API server to do that. I'm definitely not the right person to do that because I don't know enough about the setup of the API server.
Okay.
So it's not an easy first task. It sounds like it could be an easy first task, but it's I don't think it is, unless you want to learn about the internals of the API server.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna keep this here for now. But I
There's
wish
like an
somebody.
expert help needed.
Yeah, I'm gonna exactly use that. It's pretty much we need Jordan to do it. Empty
It's
pod
cheating.
selector doesn't mean empty. I don't know if you've heard of this one. The problem is that, and I can focus on the specific aspect of this. Yeah, so the problem with this one is that an empty label selector means everything. A nil empty selector means nothing. And we're not, because we have all these things where like if you send an empty thing, it means you don't have an opinion. I think we're kind of not seeing this. And I don't know if we in server-side apply can make a difference between a pointer and an empty thing. Do we, Joe? Can you remember?
You know, we right now what will happen is whatever you put in your configuration will get carried along until it's converted into native objects if that happens, right? So if it's a CRD, it'll just store the JSON. So it can totally tell the difference between, you know, a nil thing and an absent thing, and an empty map and an empty list. So it can tell the difference between a lot of things that are kind of sometimes coalesce other places. If it gets converted to a native type, that will just like disappear, right? Like if the native type is a nullable field, then it can't hold the difference between an absent field and a null value. So it'll get like massaged down, or it'll kind of like coalesce down to whatever the representation is. So it depends, which is kind of annoying, right? Because that means you have to actually know as a user if you're working with a CRD or a native type, and if the native type is this kind, what it's going to do.
Yeah, the problem here is that you have either an empty map or a map that has fields, and the way we merge that is that we check the nothing plus the thing that has a thing, and when we merge, we end up with the thing, right? And so it's not, the semantic is completely wrong because we merge nothing, which means everything, and something, and we end up with something, of course, while merging everything plus something should obviously be everything. But I mean, we have no way of knowing that. There is no chance we're going to know that.
Yeah, there's not. It's just not available to us.
The solution is to make that atomic, which actually makes sense according to Jordan, and I think I agree with him.
I saw his comment about that, and I agreed. Yeah, and then I also saw your comment where it's like, I'm not disagreeing, but note that this happens at the call site, not on the object itself, which makes it harder to actually implement and ensure that we do it everywhere. So this sounds a little nasty in terms of implementation.
And if a CRD also wants to use it in their type, they have to know about that as well.
Right. You guys can assign this to me, Antoine, because it feels really close to what I was just working on. I'm sorry I haven't gotten more time with it yet, but let me just go through all the cases and see what we can start working on, because that might be something I can do in the background of like.
Yeah, so I see a couple of things that are important. So we need maybe to allow the annotation to be on the structure and not necessarily where it's used.
Right.
I remember having long discussions about that when we prototyped that. And like, is the list type a property of the structure itself or how it's used? And I think arguably it's going to be both depending on the situation.
Yeah, I think that's
we have to be told because it can be in two places now.
Yeah, I've been wondering for a while, and sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, if we need more linters on the native types to make sure that we follow conventions that we expect things to have. And if this would be like that kind of case where like you would say, well, if it's already defined on the type, then you really shouldn't define it on the call site or whatever.
Yeah. That's one thing,
Okay.
and the other is the compatibility as you change a type from non-atomic to atomic, and vice versa.
Yeah. Or if you have to do ratcheting, what's going to happen? Okay.
Right. So, like today, if we change these types to be atomic, what's going to happen? So we have a section in, where is it gone? Here. Somewhere I've already mentioned this problem. We know it exists. I can't remember exactly where, but I've already mentioned that we need to have tests to understand what the behavior is when we change the types, and we need to document that properly, which we're not doing because we don't even know how the code is going to behave in this case. But I wanted to have tests to make sure that, first of all, we don't change that behavior accidentally, and second of all, document the actual behavior. And maybe we want to change that behavior so that people can change that. And we've had discussions about that with Jenny, and the conclusion was it's complicated.
Right.
So we don't know yet, but we
Okay.
definitely figure this out.
Okay, let me spend some time getting caught up on it and making sure I understand all the nuances, and then I'll bring it back up.
Awesome.
Something for me down. Cool.
Where was I now? Here. I'm going to put your name there.
Yeah, please. Keep me honest.
Okay, this is mine, and this is yours. Man, you have too many.
Yeah, I might grab Jenny or something if I get overloaded. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, we have a little bit of time, and let's since the code freezes now, let's discuss maybe about other things that we want to do in the next cycle.
Good.
We have this, we have that. I'm confident this is gonna land.
Yeah, for once. Do we have any? What's our goal for the next release? I think we talked about it last time. And what do we plan on getting default this time, or can we even? Like, what was our point on that?
As much as I liked last time saying, okay, the plan is gonna be this, and we're gonna plan accordingly, it's been a massive failure, and I'd rather say, let's work on the items that are important and see when we can.
Yeah, I agree. Do we want any special focus? Well, I mean, we still focus on making it more compatible with the current users. Do we have anything we should focus on?
Yeah, I was going to ask a similar question, which is slightly different, but what are the most disruptive things that we have yet to do? That, like,
what do you mean disruptive?
I mean, from a user perspective, that people might feel that we've changed the way any of the features work. Do we have anything big like that left?
I'm gonna keep poking at your sentence. What's a user? Like, are you talking about controllers?
So, yeah, I'm thinking of people that are already starting to adopt server-side apply, doing things for it. Maybe they're writing infrastructure that leverages it. You know, anything like Terraform style tools or whatever. Are there big outstanding things that we plan to change that would be like breaking for them, or otherwise really disruptive?
So I'm gonna tell you what I think right now. I suspect that changing your workflow for CubeBuilder from client side to server side is fairly easy. And so if you're using client side apply today and tomorrow you want to use server side apply, you either maybe add the flag, create an alias for CubeBuilder, change your CI/CD pipeline to use the flag, and I suspect it's mostly going to work the same. It's maybe not going to work exactly the same, but it's going to work the same. On the other hand, if you are writing a controller that you plan on maintaining for years, whether you're going to use server-side apply or not is a massive design decision.
Right.
So I'm seeing like the CubeColor user and the controller users, they have very different timelines. One is going to change and maybe it's going to work. The other has to plan and design based on that. So I suspect we should tackle the controller users first. And I'm seeing a lot more people asking me, I'm trying to build this controller. Is this going to work? How is this going to work? Can I build my controller on that? Because they have to do planning, much more planning than CubeColor users have to do. So I suspect if we should polish something, maybe we should actually polish the experience for our controllers, because as soon as controllers can start using it, it's going to change their lives. And later, CubeColor users, it's not very complicated for them to change. It's much less disruptive for CubeColor users.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because I'd heard a couple people say things along similar lines. So it sounds like what we should be doing is let's land the stuff that we've already got, that we're already working on, and then try and get as good of a story as we can for controllers and client Go and that going.
Yeah. So if you look at the controller, this is a plan, because this is literally breaking CubeBuilder right now.
Yeah. Okay, so not just, CubeBuilder is really important in the story. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Makes good sense.
This is also breaking controllers.
Not as important, but probably somewhat important. Yeah. This is definitely very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think especially API clients, I thought about it. So to apply, I've been writing a few controllers over the last 2 weeks, and I always thought apply would make it easier. And then I thought, well, do I want to apply a write JSON that I want to apply, like, or the Go structs? Like, I think the API clients would be a big benefit.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, guys. That's really helpful.
Let's look at the backlog. This is definitely not important from a controller perspective, but it's impacting every CubeColor users. But I don't think it's a priority right now.
The sub-resources.
Yeah, I would say that feels more like polish and finish than the other things we just discussed.
Which one?
Oh, the validation stuff, schema validation.
Yeah, I agree. This is sort of important. This is definitely a CubeColor user. These are somewhat important, but sort of been unrelated to strictly server-side apply. I'd like to focus right now on finishing and polishing server-side apply rather than take these. I'm excited about these, but
yeah, it feels like that's kind of a separate track. So if anybody wants to work on that track, that's great, but it feels like it's a little separate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and once Mike gets also more context from SIGARC or whatever on like how we're going to tackle declarative APIs, that will also kind of map into it.
And admission controllers is strictly for yourself, I think. So I think we're on the right track. So let's rename this make SSA great for controllers.
Cool.
That should make a few people happy as well.
Yeah. Cool. I'm excited. I think we can call it the day.
Yep.
Does anybody want to add something?
Oh, that's plenty for me.
Yep. Great talking to you. I'll stop the recording.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.